Firstly, the speaker introduced the listeners that about course Introduction to Economy. Then he said that the book for that course, Economics for the New Millennium, was available at the university bookstore. Next, he said the price was a bit steep, but he thought they would find it was well worth it. After that, he suggested bring their books to the next class. Finally, he said there would be two exams, a midterm and a final, in addition to which they would write several short research papers. The boss announced the employee that need to be aware of their return policy. Then he said, don't accept any returns from customers without a dated receipt. Next, make sure all returned items were in good condition before accepting them, because they had had problems in the past with customers returning damaged goods. After that, he said, remembering they issued store credit, not cash, for returns. Finally, he said, if they receive complaints about that, please let him know. The speaker introduced the listeners about Dr. Gabriel's office. Then he said, if there was an emergency, please help and call an ambulance. If they would like to make an appointment or ask for medical advice, call back during their regular office hour. Next, he said they were opened from 10 to 6 Monday through Friday, and from 9 to 12 on the first Saturday of each month. Finally, he said they need to make an appointment because they didn't accept walking. Firstly, the captain announced the waiter, reminding the passenger that they would be landing shortly. Then he said, checking to make sure all seat belts were fastened, and asked the passenger to turn down all cell phones and recording devices. Finally, he said, finding out if there was anyone with small children requiring extra assistance, or if anyone needed help getting to connecting flight. The speaker introduced the listeners that is YS radio. Then he said because of the drought, government officials were asking all city residents to conserve water. Next, he said residents were asked not to fill their swimming pools or water their garden until further notice. Right now, the government was asking residents to do that on a voluntary basis, although if the situation becomes so severe, the fines would be imposed. Finally, he said, staying tuned to Radio is YG for all the latest updates. Firstly, the speakers thanked the listeners for calling the city hotline. Then he said their information source for all city events. Next, he said for theater schedule and ticket order, press 1. For museum information, including information on special exhibits, the lecture series at the Art Museum, and the foreign film series at the History Museum, press 2. To hear about upcoming sports events at the City Stadium, press 3. Finally, he said to speak to an operator, please stay on the line. Firstly, the speakers said the listeners that the History Museum was their last stop that day. They would spend 2 hours there. Next, he said, recorded tours were available at the front desk for a small fee. He also had free information brochures about the permanent exhibit for anyone who was interested. They were asked to return to the bus no later than 5:30. Finally, he said the bus would take us to their hotel, where they would enjoy dinner and an evening program. Firstly, the speakers said the listeners that they had heavy traffic that morning because of a car breakdown on Road 1 near the airport. Then he said avoiding Road 1 if at all possible. Road construction was slowing traffic over the city bridge. Be prepared for a long, slow drive to work that morning. Finally, he suggested taking the bus or subway. Firstly, the speakers said to listeners that buying a house can be confusing, especially in today's market. Then he said the first step was obtaining a loan from the bank. Next, to apply for a home mortgage, they would need to get the necessary paperwork from a bank officer. They would have to have proof of their income and financial assets. Finally, he said that could help the officer determine how large a loan they qualify for.